Hey guys, thanks for joining me. And if you like what you see, please subscribe. Hello, people. So welcome to Sharp Ends. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to go over quickly, for those of you who don't know knives too well, the different kinds of locks that are out there and how they affect the way that the knife is used, and tell you what some of my favorite ones are. First off, there's the button lock, which I think is a great, awesome lock. This is a ProTech Malibu. What happens is that the lock engages the back of the blade, right there. And when you push that in, it goes into a slot on the back side of the blade right there and comes up, stops against the stop pin. So all you have to do is compress that lock, that button, and then it'll slide in there. You don't want to grease any lock that you have, because if you get a needle applicator and you want to make your knife run smoother, just make sure that you only grease the bearings and the washers. In general, just don't do the locking mechanism, because that'll create lock stick in most knives. Next, this is the Reduncion 229 by Chavez. This is an example of a frame lock. Frame lock is what it kind of sounds like. There's basically a piece of metal cut out of the frame, and the frame bends in to engage. Things to watch out for is how much does the lock actually engage the face here. Now, a good lock, frame lock, has an edge, and you can see that there's an edge cut in right there. And this will get in there really nicely. Now, sometimes this sticks. There'll be a lock stick in there. That could be the fault of the knife maker, or it could be that there's some grease in there. It could be a lot of different things, but you don't want that. The other thing you want to make sure is that your frame lock can't accidentally go too far out here and bend out that way. In this case, the clip is actually keeping it from doing that. And sometimes there's other preventative ways that the frame lock is kept from going too far over. And this is easy. You just push it over your thumb, and then if it's got good action, it should just drop shut. So yeah, that's a frame lock. This is a button lock, but it's also an automatic. So this is the ProTech Malibu. This is the Strider PT Plus. So this is a button lock again, but it's also an automatic. So there's actually a spring, a large spring around the blade that when you disengage the button lock, it does that. And then you have to push it down a little bit to get it to unlock. It's locked in the out position. It's not going to go anywhere, but you have to unlock it and then force it back in there. So that's a side opening automatic. This is a very, very common kind of lock, and it's just a liner lock. What I mean by that is it's the same kind of theory as the frame lock, but you've got, it's inside the liner. So you've got the scale, and then you've got the liner in here, and then you just disengage that, and then now it'll come, right? That's a very safe, easy to use lock. There's nothing wrong with a liner lock. Some of the best knives in the world are liner locks. Then you have the Access lock, which was originally developed by Benchmade, and now it's kind of gone everywhere, and people have decided to call it a bar lock. I like the Spyderco's version of this the most. I actually don't like bar locks that much. It doesn't rely on Omega springs. It relies on a spring on this back bar over here, and I like their version of it the most. I find it to be a lot more comfortable. I won't say reliable. I won't say anything else about it. Access locks or bar locks are incredibly strong and very good, and they'll never disengage on you unless you're doing something crazy with holding the handle and somehow pulling back at the same time. Next, you have the slip joint, which is very traditional type of knife, which your grandfather had, and you might have had as your first knife too. And it's got something called the walk and talk. So it's got this first stop. This is a Real Steel Luna knife. The Knife Nuts podcast exclusive. And so that was the walk, and then the talk, right? So it's got these two little clicks in there. This isn't a locking blade. You push it and it just holds the blade out. However, in most cities and municipalities that have knife laws, you usually can still get away with a slip joint. So something to be aware of. This traditional type of design isn't really used that much by a lot of modern makers, but there are, don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of people who do that. Next one I want to talk about is, it's not really a lock type. I'm just going to say mechanical, and I just want to show this off. It's a Riot XO. It's the first generation, one of the very first ones, models they made. And so what happens is it locks actually by doing this. And so there's different ways of having mechanical locks, and this is one of them, right? So this is just a gravity knife, and basically by squeezing the hand, you're keeping it locked. Very cool. Next, we have the compression lock, which is a Spyderco thing, and it is awesome. This is actually my friend's Spyderco knife that he gave to me to sharpen, but I can use it as an example for that. And that is, and so it's kind of like a liner lock, but instead of it being here, it's on the back side of the blade, which creates a really cool little action where you just squeeze the back and it just closes right up. Very cool knife. I like this a lot. I love this. I love that type of lock. Spyderco uses those a lot. And then I'm just going to talk about Demko. Every single knife that Demko's made, they have a different kind of lock. They have the Scorpion lock. They have the Tri-Axis lock. They have the Wham Bam Thank You Ma'am lock. All kinds of lock. And then, of course, they have the Shark lock here, which has become pretty famous. It's a really nice, you can open it like this. So in a way, the lock almost can become the action. That's pretty cool. There's not many knives where the actual... There's not many locking mechanisms where the locking mechanism can become also the action of deployment, and I think that that's really cool. And I guess I'll just throw out there's one other thing, and that is the ring lock, which you'll find on Opinel. I think they're called ring locks, and that's where you have this another mechanical thing where you have to turn this piece around to get it to lock, and then now it is locked. Kind of a pain in the butt. But yeah, Opinel uses these a lot, so that's what that's called, is a ring lock. So what's my favorite? I like any well-tuned lock. I think maybe going in order, I think I like the Shark lock a lot. I think it's I think it's probably my favorite. Next, I'd have to say the button lock. I love the button lock. Next, I'd have to say the frame lock. I really like that. And I'm not discounting the liner lock at all. I really like a nice liner lock. I really do. Like, the difference between my favorite lock and my least favorite lock is not very much. And then my least favorite, and then I left the compression lock is great. My least favorites would have to be the ring and the slip joint and the axis or the bar lock. So that's a basic overview of the different kinds of locks that you can find in different knives. And you can find some of these locks, like a button lock is really nice. And yes, you can get a ProTech Malibu, but you have to spend a lot of money for a ProTech Malibu. So if you don't know if you're going to like a button lock, don't get that. Get something like the Sencut Serene. This is a $45 knife, and you will know because Sencut/Zivivi make really good button locks. And after having this, you will know whether or not you like the action of a button lock. So in most cases, you can find a cheaper version of these. Not all cases. You can't really find a cheap compression lock, and you can't find a cheap Shark lock, but you can find access locks and things like that pretty cheaply. Okay, I think that's all I have for you today. So that's my overview of locks. Thank you for spending some time with me, and I will see you guys next time on Sharp Ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also follow me on Instagram at Sharp Ends. Bye-bye now. Have a good rest of your week.